I was playing 8-player Smash with a group of friends a week ago, and one of them said that it was an amazing casual game. Hearing this, I flexed my smug muscles and told him that there's actually a bustling competitive scene for not just Smash Wii U, but for Super Smash Bros. Melee as well, which is nearly a 16-year-old game. He was shocked and asked me, well, how can this be competitive? You hit your opponent, they shield, they run, and there aren't really any combos like in Street Fighter. And I really didn't have a good answer at the time because we were all sleep deprived. But now that I've collected my thoughts clearly, I think I can say why Smash is a fantastic esport. This video will be directed at those who are confused as to why Smash tournaments consistently get Twitch viewers in the 5 figures, and why 2 Smash games were a shoo-in for the EVO 2017 lineup. Those who are already knowledgeable about the competitive Smash scene, this video isn't really for you. You can click off now. But for those who are into esports and only really see Smash as a casual experience, I hope I can broaden your perspective. Also, please note that I'm nowhere near proficient in the competitive Melee scene as I am for the Smash Wii U one. I've been to a few Smash Wii U tournaments, but I've never been competitively good at the game. Like, I've never been, in the top 10 of my region, you know? If what I say sounds like a lot of hogwash, then please let me know so I can better correct myself for the future. Anyways, onto the video. The biggest barrier to entry for a lot of fighting games for me are the controls. I feel that the inputs for moves in Street Fighter, Tekken, and Mortal Kombat don't flow very well for me. Doing a quarter circle to throw a fireball doesn't really make much sense to me. Why do I need to undergo these technical hurdles to access the game fully? To me, a fighting game is a mental match between you and an opponent. It's like a game of chess in which you're able to read your opponent and adapt to their behavior. You can predict their movements in a few seconds, punish them for their mistakes, and win the game. It is a place for the best player to prevail, and it's open to many playstyles. You can go all-out offense and assault your opponent, or you can turtle up, chip away, zone them, and poke away at them to whittle their spirits and life bar. Fighting games are beautiful to me, but they have tough controls to master. I also don't like the 2D movement in traditional fighting games. I understand that a dash is a commitment and it should be punished, but the inability to run or truly maneuver very well bothers me. I respect that jumps, back dashes, forward dashes, and moves are high-risk maneuvers, but I don't feel fully in control in traditional fighting games. The standard plane doesn't allow me to fully express myself. Smash Bros., however, mitigates this problem by being a platform fighter. What that means is movement is completely freeform. Sure, you're limited to a walk, a run, and a double jump, but it's the minutia of movement and microspacing that really interests me. Smash Bros. Has a lot of great movement tech as well, but I'll get into that in a later section. See, Smash Bros. Doesn't make dashes or movements stiff, but rather very fluid. Every stage is like a playground. You can spend the whole match hopping on platforms, you can consistently go in on your opponent, and you still have the option to run and camp and zone them with projectiles. Each stage is like a sandbox. Every player has complete access to all movement options, and they can easily go wherever they want. Movement is crisp and intricate, as you can jump, fast fall, walk, tiptoe, and utilize advanced techniques to get the perfect spacing. Spacing is the best part about Smash Bros. Micro movements are much easier and much more possible, which allows for gameplay that is intricate and kind of hard to notice for the untrained eye. There are tons of pages and research on spacing and frame data for each Smash game, and each animation for every character is meticulously designed to complement this free-form movement system. For example, a character with a sword like Marth just looks cool to the casual player. Swords are cool, right? I love swords. But to the competitive player, a sword provides what's called a disjointed hitbox. This is a hitbox that's not attached to the character, and thus can be thrown out without the character getting hit. What I mean by this is when Marth swings his long sword, and an opponent tries to swing at the sword with a fist, the sword will beat it out and Marth will take no damage. This is true for any character with a disjointed hitbox. Donkey Kong's back air has a lot of range, but it will lose to Marth's sword. However, to compensate for this, characters with disjointed hitboxes have worse frame data. This means that their attacks generally take a few more frames to come out and have longer recovery frames. This means that their attacks are slower, but by only 1/6 of a second. And you might scoff when you hear that and say, 1/6 of a second slower for a sword? Who cares? Better range is awesome. Well, 1/6 of a second in a 60 FPS fighting game is like an eternity. Sword characters often get beat up by characters with swift options like Mario, and this is why movement is so important. Playing keep away with the sword, being able to zone in space properly will separate the bad sword players from the good ones. Marth in Smash Wii U was considered a low tier character for about a year. However, through some range buffs and frame data buffs, he's now considered a top 10 character because players learn to utilize his spacing much more effectively. This advancement of a character's abilities would not be possible without Smash's air and ground control, and it's why I find it a lot more fluid and satisfying than traditional 2D fighters. Smash is absolved for more complex input moves as well. I know I sound like a huge casual when I say I'm not a fan of quarter circles, but Smash mitigates this problem by simplifying it. You either hold left, right, up, down, or no direction, which is called neutral, and hit either A or B. Those are your two attack buttons. Sounds simple, right? Well, it gets simpler. These series of commands are universal for every character, meaning that if you could do these simple inputs with one character, you can do it for every single character. Now, that sounds a little too easy, right? Well, nobody's moves are the same. Although the input the player has to do is the same for every character, the output on screen is different. Donkey Kong's side B headbutt has vastly different uses and properties than Villager's side B projectile. So once a player gets an understanding of the controls, it's easy for them to find a character that fits their playstyle. Do you enjoy the grappler/bruiser of Bowser? Or do you enjoy the rushdown and combos of Fox? You know the controls, so any option is open to you. This is where the mental battle of Smash comes in. Each character feels natural with their button presses and movements, so the players are focusing on reading their opponent's tendencies, trying to be unpredictable and maximizing their punishes. The controls are incredibly simple, but that's okay because Smash Bros. Makes up for it with its movement tech. If you've been browsing the internet at all, I'm sure you've heard terms like Wave Dash and Shine Spike float around occasionally. These are references to Smash Bros.' movement tech. See, the free-form platforming and controls are there to facilitate the advanced movement techniques. Some of these were put in the games on purpose, like perfect pivoting and foxtrotting, while some were accidental exploits like wave dashing and dash attack cancelled up smashes, or DACs for short. Movement tech is another aspect of Smash Bros. That separates the newbie from the expert, especially in Melee. If you look at a regular, casual match of Melee, it looks fairly slow and normal. There are jumps, attacks, shields, the usual. It's something that will likely happen to you if you were to pick up Melee and play it with your friends. Now, here's a competitive match. Notice how much faster the movement is. Notice that there's an abundance of short hops and massive combos. They fall very fast, and if you look at their hands, it looks like they're doing an unhealthy amount of hand movements. All of that is true. An average game of high-level Melee has 6 inputs per second. That is absolute insanity. That's akin to competitive StarCraft, which is no easy feat. It requires hundreds of hours of technical prowess to even scratch the surface of Melee's intricacies and movement. To some, this is seen as a huge barrier of entry, and to others, it's seen as something fantastic. A lot of technical skill means that there's always new goals to reach, and a meta that can always develop. Even for Melee, a game that's 16 years old, there are new developments in the metagame. This movement tech does come with a few problems, though. Melee's movement is such a huge wall to overcome that the top players have been the same for roughly 5 years now. The game is thankfully to a point where there are plenty of sponsors for more players, so they can devote a lot of time to getting better, so this stagnation will hopefully change in the future. Melee may not have the Shoryuken and Hadouken inputs, but it compensates by having movement tech that allows players to quickly and efficiently approach in space against their opponents. This seemingly instant gameplay forces the mental part of Melee to be faster as well, making decisions about where to jump, when to approach, how to track an opponent's tendencies. It all requires an absurd amount of practice. Learning these movement abilities, how to execute them consistently, and how to not suffer hand cramps is what will allow a player to become better in Melee. And now it's time to get controversial. Smash Wii U doesn't have the same insane movement tech of Melee, but it does offer a few tricks up its sleeve as well. Smash Wii U is all about micro-spacing, and arguably has more emphasis placed on reading an opponent rather than comboing them. See, in Melee, there are much fewer defensive options than Smash Wii U. The air dodge in Melee is very weak, and shields aren't very effective because you can apply so much pressure to an opponent. It feels like in Melee, offense is the only option. In Smash Wii U, air dodging and shields are much more effective. Furthermore, in Melee, there's a lot more of something called hit stun. This hit stun is that when you get hit, you're stunned. Easy enough to understand. When you get hit into the air in Melee, you're stuck in hit stun. And in hit stun, you can't do anything. Hit stun lasts a lot longer in melee, and couple that with weak air dodging, combos are dominant in melee. So although it doesn't look like there's a dedicated combo system, a large hit stun length allows for absolutely bonkers combos that can kill an opponent in a single hit. Smash Wii U has a much shorter hit stun than melee, and thus combos are much harder to pull off and much shorter. Some see this as a detriment and say that Smash Wii U is much more boring to watch than melee. This may be weird to say, but I think I like that Smash Wii U is a bit slower than melee. It's much easier to track and analyze your opponent's movements, and as a spectator, it's much easier to understand the deeper thoughts behind decisions. There's much less technical execution required to play at the top level, so the top competitors can vary a lot. There are much more younger players who are making a rise in Smash 4, and its meta is also very fresh. People are always discovering how to best maximize combos and follow-ups at certain percentages. This ease of controls and lack of super advanced movement tech means that players can focus on their opponents and optimizing punishes more. Melee's meta has evolved to a point where if you aren't consistently doing 6 inputs a second and getting these advanced maneuvers down, then you won't make it in a tournament. It's such a barrier to entry that newer players are often discouraged to join. It's why I don't really enjoy playing Melee. I don't want to go through the frustrating grind just to be able to compete. There's such a hurdle that must be overcome if you want to get to the core of Smash Bros. The mental game. Smash Wii U, although it has less movement tech, doesn't require hours of dull, bitter training to master it. I feel like in Melee, I'm fighting against a game at points, whereas in Smash Wii U, I don't even think about the controls. They all flow naturally for me. However, this is just my personal opinion, and I'm sure to get a lot of lambasting in the comments because of this, which is okay. If you're fine with melee controls, that's awesome. You can find worth in something that I couldn't. Smash uses advanced movement abilities to compensate for its lack of fancy-dancy combos, and that makes it an even more unique and accessible experience to more players. If you're a savvy Smasher, you may have noticed that I've absolved from mentioning directional influence, or DI, in the movement tech section. That's because I believe DI is the most important aspect to Super Smash Bros., and what makes it my fighting game of choice. See, you ever play Street Fighter, and then somebody lands a move on you, and you eat a 12-hit combo that obliterates half your life bar? Doesn't that make you salty how that one hit led to all that damage, and that there was nothing you could do to escape the combo? Well, DI lets you escape combos in Smash Bros. See, in Smash, when you get hit, you can influence the direction you get hit in. You can move the analog stick in any way, and you can either reduce the amount you get knocked back, or you can influence the direction you're hit in. DI has many properties. You can get knocked in the air and get bopped for a combo, but then when they hit you, you could hold your stick in a direction behind them. This could allow you to escape combos. DI means that combos aren't just a guaranteed punish. After every hit, you have to predict what movement your opponent will do in the air, or if they'll do any at all. Couple this with a crazy hit stun in Melee, and DI is the main defensive option. In Smash Wii U, DI isn't as useful, but it is there. When the game first came out, DI was pretty much impossible, but through some patches and player discoveries, people found ways to survive much longer than before. DI means that, as a player, even when you're getting hit, you have to be thinking. Your mind always has to be processing the next move, or you just eat a massive combo and die very quickly. DI keeps you on your toes constantly. It goes even deeper than just escaping combos. Do you DI in anticipation of getting hit by your opponent? If you hit an opponent, where will they DI? You don't really know if it's your first time, but if they haven't been mixing their DI up, then you know where they will DI, and you can follow accordingly. So I believe that it is this ability to control your movement and the constant mental activity that entices so many people to Smash. Complex move inputs aren't a problem, but maximizing movement for punishes and defensive options are why people flock to Smash as an alternative, less restrictive fighting game. Alright, I'm gonna make a soapbox statement here. All Smash players think they are anime protagonists. Well, that's not very fair to say, and that doesn't really make much sense, so let me try to elaborate. In 2014, a YouTube channel called East Point Pictures released a Super Smash Bros. Documentary. In this documentary, it details the history of the competitive melee scene for Super Smash Bros. Melee. The documentary takes place from 2002 to 2013 and shows how certain players were kings of their time and how the game progressed until EVO 2013, which is what truly revitalized Smash Bros. As an esport in many people's eyes. It's a great 4-hour documentary, and it's very informative of one of the longest running competitive scenes in video games. I recommend you check it out. But what's more important is that it got millions of views and got many people into Smash Bros. The documentary followed 1 year after EVO 2013, and now Smash Bros. Melee is a mainstay in the EVO lineup. It never even used to be considered before, but now it's a shoo-in. It has one of the largest and most dedicated fan bases, and Melee is fast and hype, and who doesn't like watching that? But here's where the anime protagonist thing comes in. The way the documentary is paced and edited, the way it focuses on 7 protagonists and edits it to be very dramatic, that's where the anime protagonist thing comes from. Everything in the documentary is really over the top and Yu-Gi-Oh-esque. So when you have impressionable kids watching it, myself included, you have an audience that deifies these smashers. They're painted as either heroes or villains, not regular human beings. And that adds to the spectator aspect of Smash. It feels that, despite just being a stupid video game, it feels like we're watching professional wrestling. Like there are storylines and these people are characters, not regular average human beings. So that adds to the massive Twitch numbers for people. It also doesn't help that there are plenty of anime videos to reaffirm this suspicion and better instill the belief in people, but whatever. A blessing and a curse for competitive Smash is that it can't be played online. Although Smash Wii U has an online option, it's bad. Like, really bad. There's a lot of lag, and Nintendo's pretty much forgotten about the Wii U, so playing competitively online is impossible. Therefore, like any fighting game, to play competitively, you have to get off your butt and go to a tournament. You have to leave the house. I know, scary. And even scarier, you have to interact with people. Like, socialization. It's terrifying. I know because I've done it a few times. I've gone to a few tournaments, and guess what? They're a ton of fun. Although in the video I made about tournaments nearly a year ago, I said that there were a lot of Fedora warriors, but I take that back. You really see that these people are just like anybody. The first tournament I went to was held at a university I went to, and all the people there had things to do. They had regular schedules and social lives, and they had dreams. They certainly didn't think they were anime characters, but that's appealing, right? Knowing that even at a very small tournament, you can run into individuals who already have something in common. Smash. You guys can unite over arguments and agreements. People from different walks of life come to a tournament to be different people, and you're able to gain new perspectives on life and others. This is applicable to any fighting game really, and it's a reason why people are drawn to them. Even if you go to a tournament, pay $20 to enter, and lose immediately, you still have a fun time. It's like a big convention that happens nearly any weekend. You always have something to do, play Smash. And you always have people to talk to. It's basically like you're at home, but with a bunch of homies over. You learn new tech about your respective game, and you grow better as a player and as a person. This is a very localized perspective, but it's why Smashers are probably so tight-knit. They have to talk, and they have to get to know one another. It's why there's so much passion for certain regions and crew battles. It isn't just out of pride where you're from, it's because you probably know at least one person representing your region, so there's some sense of community. Personally, the fact that the prize pool for Smash is so low compared to other esports is testament to how dedicated Smashers are to their craft. First place in super major tournaments with 2,000 plus entrants nets players around $15,000, and it's near impossible to make smashing a career because of low prize amounts. Getting 7th at EVO nets you like $500, which probably only covers the plane ticket to get there. So winnings aren't really what push people to play Smash. If they just cared about the money, they'd go play Dota, League, or CSGO to gain hundreds of thousands of dollars. But they chose Smash. They chose an incredibly hard game that has little payout because of their love for it. And I think that's brilliant. I mean, you don't need camaraderie to enjoy Smash Brothers, but it's a reason why its fan base is so dedicated. My goodness, these guys have come out strong. There are so many highlight compilations, so many top 10s, and so many well-edited videos about Smash Bros. Than there were even just 2 years ago. This community has significantly grown in the last year because of YouTubers like GR Smash, Plasma Smash, Dragon Smash, GR Trash, Relax Alax, Alpha Red, and many more. Although their subscribers don't reach the millions like other esports, they are still keeping the community strong with good, entertaining content. They post frequently too, so YouTube's algorithm loves what they do. That means that Smash lists reach a larger audience and people watch the highlights and get hyped. They can then discover like a Facebook page of their local Smash scene or the Smash Bros subreddit, which has 216,000 people subscribed to this as I'm writing. The people who analyze matches, the people who make in-depth training regimens, these dedicated people didn't even exist 2 years ago. The Smash scene is always growing, and both Melee and Smash Wii U are in fantastic places. Content creators allow newer players to be intrigued and brought into the game. So I hope that I've cleared the air for a lot of people. Why this Pokeball throwing game where you play with friends is played so competitively as one of the biggest fighting game esports. Its accessibility and alternative movement to the standard 2D fighting game appeals to a lot of people. Its online community fosters camaraderie and pushes people to get better, and local communities offer people a chance to broaden their Smash horizons. Smash is an esport, and it will continue to grow as one, and that's fantastic. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I spent a lot of time editing and writing this, so leave a like, comment, and subscription if you enjoyed it. I make reviews and editorials about video games and internet-related content. Again, thanks so much for watching all the way through to the end, and have a fantastic day, everybody.